Welcome to another episode of Palm Harbor Local. I'm your host, Florida native and real estate ninja, Donnie Hathaway. You know, I started this podcast because I'm extremely passionate about connecting you with the people and the local businesses that make Palm Harbor so special. Palm Harbor, Florida is a great place to live, work, and play. It has everything you could dream of, from the food, the outdoors, the lifestyle, to the people in the community. I wanted to create a podcast that connected the community and inspired everyone to live better. To join this community and stay up to date on all things Palm Harbor, visit my website, it's palmharborlocal.com, and sign up there to join the locals. And remember, together, we keep Palm Harbor local. So on today's episode, we have Mitch Teckman with Legendary Tattoos. Welcome.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. So I'm excited to kind of learn. We were just chatting a little bit before just about business and marketing and all that kind of stuff. So I'm excited to kind of just chat with you, learn more about the tattoo business because I don't have any tattoos, never really experienced that process and kind of what that's like. So I'm curious to learn more about that. But let's just start off and tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. Well, my name is Mitch Teckman, and I grew up around Palm Harbor area since I was 3 years old. Family moved down from Pittsburgh, and we started out in Dunedin and then moved to Palm Harbor and got to watch this area really develop and grow. Was always into art as a kid. My mother was an artist, and just from watching her do all these different forms of multimedia, I kind of followed her lead and was just always into it. And went to actually Palm Harbor Middle, Palm Harbor High School, first graduating class actually at Palm Harbor.
Nice.
And that's where I really shifted from the art side of things into the music side, because I had a close friend that was in the jazz band and started playing guitar. And that really led me into wanting to pursue the music industry. So I went to, back in 2001, went to Full Sail University for audio engineering and pursued that degree and got out and realized that it was a difficult time in the recording industry to get an entry-level position. So I started doing audio video installations in Trinity and all the areas that were developing around us, where we were going in and wiring up home theater systems and that kind of stuff. And I realized at that point that this job was not going to lead me. It wasn't fulfilling. It really wasn't what I had gone to school for. So I had ended up joining a band around that time. And it turns out that a guy in my band was a piercer. And so I started kind of hanging out at the tattoo parlor.
Okay.
And that's when the art kind of came back in, where I realized that, well, I'm playing in this band. I could potentially learn how to tattoo and do the music thing on the side. And coincidentally, around that time, my mother, who she was an esthetician for 20 years in the local area, she started pursuing permanent cosmetics. So she had brought in home a tattoo kit. And this is all around the time that I started hanging out at the tattoo shop and all that. And I remember hanging out at my mom's place, and we were sitting there practicing. She was practicing hair strokes for like eyebrows and stuff.
Okay.
And I just grabbed a machine and started drawing, and it was on a fake skin. And I just immediately kind of fell in love with the idea that, hey, I can do this. And I know the guys at the local shop. So I just kind of was very fortunate to meet the right people at the right time.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a way out of the hard labor job that I was doing into a totally different realm that was definitely more artistic. And, I just never looked back. So I've been doing it now 20 years and still love it every day,
That's amazing.
Eventually I want to back off a little bit, but right now things are good. So I'm still having fun with it,
So so the first time you tattooed anything was at your mom's place?
Well, I started practicing there, and then I started wanting to practice on human skin at that point. And she said, well, you got to do it in the garage. She didn't even want me doing it in the house because my parents don't have any tattoos. They're not into it. So I had a friend that I was actually working with doing the audio video stuff, and he had some older, simple black tattoos. And so I started just redoing stuff for people, and I was able to start figuring it out. And then from there, I seeked out the apprenticeship, where I went to the local tattoo shop and kind of showed him what I was doing and said, I really want to learn from your artists and at your shop.
Okay.
And I think he saw that, hey, this is a local kid from the area. He's got a lot of friends. He's in a band. So it was kind of a win-win, where he knew that I was going to be able to bring him clients.
Sure.
And just develop my skills there. And kind of went on a journey over the years with going to different shops and working with different artists.
So what about like the first time you tattooed like a person? Like what was that like? Were
It's
you
definitely
nervous?
nerve wracking
Yeah.
because you're dealing with someone that's moving and twitching, and you definitely have to treat it like a procedure, and you have to be able to separate the pain factor that they're experiencing from the art factor. So that's why I think a lot of people get into it and struggle, because you're having to keep that person calm
Yeah.
and you have to guide them through it and get them through it.
Yeah.
But I was fortunate where it kind of just came naturally, where these guys kind of knew what they were in for, and we would take breaks when it got rough on them. Nowadays, we're fortunate enough to have numbing products that people can use that
Oh, wow.
they can apply beforehand, and it really takes the edge off of it.
Okay.
But I think that's the hardest battle for a lot of artists that get into tattooing, is the separation of the fact that you're not just painting on a canvas, and that it's a human being, and they're going to move and experience pain and want to take breaks. So you have to kind of balance that.
Yeah.
That
Work with
element
them
to
a
it,
little
you
bit.
know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't even think about that. So did you, like before you started tattooing, did you have tattoos yourself?
Yes, I started getting tattooed when I turned 18.
Okay.
Came home with a tattoo on my upper arm, and family was all upset about it. And I kind of became like the ringleader of every time a friend would turn 18, I'd be like, let's go to the shop.
Nice.
And I'd bring them in. I was like the bad influence on that.
Yeah.
But I just loved being at the shop. I loved the whole vibe of just the art, just being in an atmosphere where it was that creative. I just fell in love with it. So I was kind of the ringleader of my friends, of getting them all into it. But I took a break, and I started pursuing. I was doing the music thing for a while, so there was a couple years where I wasn't really getting a lot of tattoos.
Yeah.
Once I started tattooing, though, and you're in that environment, it's hard not to start adding to the collection, because it's just so inspiring to be around talented people and you're watching such cool stuff going on that
you're like, oh, I want some.
Yeah, it's hard not to get sucked into getting covered in them.
Yeah. So what do you enjoy about tattoos? Like for yourself?
My favorite style is Japanese and American traditional, the neo-traditional, which is kind of a fusion. It's a newer, updated version of the classic tattoo style, like the World War II era.
Cool.
I try to be versatile. We do a lot of black and gray work now, because over the years, the trends have changed from colorful to now, for some reason, everyone likes the black and gray style.
Yeah.
So it forced me to have to go more of that direction, even though I used to just really focus on color.
Okay.
But for myself, I like larger scale, Asian inspired and American traditional inspired stuff. That just kind of the classics. When you think tattoo, it's that older style that just it fits the body well,
Yeah.
But it's definitely spawned off into so many different directions that now you've got all these little subcategories, and that's why I've been bringing in so many other artists and training them. And everyone in our shop has a special style that they pursue, so that if somebody comes in and it's not my thing, I can say, hey, let me introduce you to Bobby or Joe or Kaylee. And so it's nice to have a dynamic where we don't have to pass that work up the road. We can keep it in-house, and you're keeping your team happy because they're doing stuff that they enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. So do most people come in, like if someone wants to get a tattoo, do they come in and say like, like you said, like, this is my style, like this is the type of tattoo that I prefer? Or are they coming in and I guess just like, how does that process work of, are they coming in with a design and saying, hey, here's what I want. Can you just recreate this and tattoo it? Or is it like, here's what I'm thinking, like, let's collaborate and kind of create something?
Well, now that we have Google and Pinterest, that changed the game. Because it used to be, we had flash racks where we would put up the art that we liked, and you would go through it and say, I kind of like this with that.
Oh, okay.
And it would allow us to kind of sway the clients into the styles of art that we really enjoyed doing.
Yeah.
Now it's an open, with the fact that you can find any concept online, most people are coming in with a couple of screenshots, or just they'll save it off of Pinterest and say, I really like this, but I kind of want to do this. And it's almost like a formula that we take their top 3 to 5 images and interview them as to, what do you like about this? Where do you want to put it on your body? And then it allows us to kind of get a visualization, and then we create it. And then when they come in for the tattoo is usually when we make the final adjustments, because we used to send out artwork, but that becomes problematic, because if I sent you an image of an outline that we were going to do, you're going to end up showing your friends, your family, and you're going to get all these other opinions.
Yeah.
And then you'll come back and you change the whole thing.
Yeah.
And it's not really about other people, what they want. It's about what you want and your vision. So we
Yeah.
try to make it to where it's more direct to our client, and we're not allowing other outside of influence to change it. And it makes it more efficient for us to be able to have everything prepared. And it's just over the years, it's become a much cleaner way of operating.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I like that. So do you, are you like actually like drawing out the tattoo on the paper or whatever it is that you use?
Well, years ago when I started, everything was paper, where you would have to print out references. There was a little bit of tracing involved, maybe for proportions on things, and then you'd be adding stuff and layering stuff, and then you're scanning it in, and then you're going into Photoshop and adding lettering, and it was a lot more back and forth with the digital. And now we use a program called Procreate, which is kind of replacing Photoshop. We still use Photoshop for some stuff.
Oh, wow.
But Procreate allows us to do everything within a tablet, and we have the Apple Pens, pen or whatever. And they have all kinds of cool apps that are available to tattooers that are tools for us to be able to layer things better.
Cool.
And so it's definitely gotten a lot more technologically advanced over the past decade.
Yeah.
There's an app called Tattoo Smart, which we go to a lot, and it's got just a lot of really cool stuff for us as artists to be able to download and use as tools. And it's really just about being more efficient and being able to get the client what they want in a smoother process, instead of going back and forth and printing all these things out. And the design element is now definitely all digital. Like, I just sold an antique drafting table that I loved it, but it was just taking up so much space in the shop.
Yeah.
And it's kind of sad to see it go, because you realize that the handcrafting aspect of the stenciling and all that is starting to kind of become a thing of the past.
Yeah.
Because with the tablets, it's just too efficient to keep going back to the old way. You know?
Right.
But there's always going to be artists that are going to be stubborn, that like that aspect of it. So even with our machinery, it started out with coil machines, which are handmade, more industrial type made machines. Now it's switching over into digital rotary machines, which are more of like a handheld pen. And
that's what you're using to like tattoo them.
Yes. So they went from having the cords where we were battling that to now that we have the freedom of the pens. It's hard to go back to coils, because the ease of use and the functionality, the cleanliness, the sterilization aspect is so much better now that it's, as much as I love the classic coil machines, there'll always be a place for it. But for day-to-day work, it's just more effective to use the newer technology.
Right. Yeah. You gotta advance in like any business, no matter what you're in, right? You gotta make those steps to be more efficient, like you said, and improve your work too.
That's right.
Yeah. So so let's talk a little bit about the business side. Like what made you decide to kind of open up your own shop, and kind of like what was that process like for you? What's up, Palm Harbor? It's your host, Donnie Hathaway. If you are looking to stay up to date with all things Palm Harbor, then visit my website. It's palmharborlocal.com. Super simple. You can sign up there, join the locals, where I'll be sharing more information on local events, local history, and what's happening in Palm Harbor. I really want to create and add more value to you as a listener for spending your valuable time tuning into my podcast. So join me there, keep listening, and remember, together, we keep Palm Harbor local.
Well, I went on a journey where I had tattooed at probably about four to five different shops over the course of about 6 years. It was a couple years at this one shop, and then I followed the guy who trained me. His name was Joey Ravo. Followed him from Palm Harbor up to Newport Richey. I had worked up in Spring Hill for a while.
Okay.
Basically, wherever I was needed and wherever there was open areas that they would want to send you, I'd go up there and work. And then I had actually worked at Dunedin. I worked at Mom's Tattoos in Dunedin with Jordan, and I really learned a lot from him. He was definitely the most talented artist when it came to the American traditional style. And I started getting a lot of tattoos from him because he was pretty much the best guy that I could find. And that shop was really where I grew as an artist and built my confidence by being around so many talented people there. And I still keep in touch with all those guys. And it's cool to be in a community of people that, even though essentially, if you look at it, you could look at it as competition, but the industry has expanded so much and there's so many people moving to this area that there's enough work for everybody. So if anything, there's a camaraderie because we all do the same thing every day, and you're sharing ideas and machines and styles and stuff. So it's nice to be in the industry for this long and to where it's not like it was years back where it was
Yeah.
everyone was clashing about, hey, you're in my territory and all this stuff. Now it's just, it's like, hey, if this guy's going to do a better job for you, by all means,
Yeah.
there's not as much people getting upset about that kind of stuff.
Which I think is important, like in every business, right? The idea of like collaboration versus competition, because it just makes that profession or that industry better. And right, so that now you're providing better service, you're getting ideas from some of your friends and that sort of stuff that are in the business doing the same thing, and now you're a better tattoo artist because of it.
That's right. The
Yeah.
more people you're exposed to that are in the industry, you're going to capture something from them. And the nice thing too is that most tattooers are willing to share advice and information on it. Whereas years back, everybody was like, "Don't look at what I'm doing."
Yeah,
It was
a little
almost like
hush
they're
hush.
trying to be secretive about their process. And now with YouTube and everything, it's just
Yeah.
changed the world where you can really research a lot of it and at least figure out the gist of it. Whereas I kind of had to experiment in my garage and figure it out on my own.
Yeah.
So I think it's good for the younger generation. They have a lot more advantage of getting into it and getting the knowledge,
Hmm. Yeah, faster. So what are some challenges? I know, like you mentioned before, managing people, right? Like starting a business and managing people. I think that's probably a challenge for a lot of business owners as they start out as like a solopreneur, and then they start, adding pieces to the business and that sort of stuff, like managing people, finding your people and that sort of stuff. So what are some things you kind of went through there?
Well, I was fortunate enough to it kind of organically happened where I would be working the shop. It started out with me, and then a buddy from another shop had come and said, "Hey, I'm looking for a spot," and brought him in. And then it was kind of just an organic process that happened over
Cool.
time. I haven't had the best of luck advertising for tattoo artists because a lot of talented artists are happy where they're at because they have a clientele built up.
Yeah.
They don't want to risk losing that. So what I've found over the years, I've had better luck actually training people from the ground up and showing them the way that we want to do it. And kind of, it's a longer investment on our side,
Yeah.
but you end up with a more dedicated, loyal employee because the trade-off is there where you're helping them to grow and get into a better financial position and all that. Um, but with management, it's difficult, but artists tend to be kind of their own brand in a way. Like they
Hmm.
promote their style. They have their own Instagram pages usually. A lot of my guys bring in their own people just based off of them posting out awesome artwork.
Hmm.
So, it's almost like a bunch of sub businesses within the business in a
Yeah.
way,
Yeah. Yeah.
But my role is to really try to promote the whole thing and to show the best of everybody so where you're keeping everybody fed and everyone's busy. Um, and then I acquired my t-shirt printing shop about 10 years ago. I started getting burned out on tattooing because it was just the day to day of 6 days a week running that. And I started backing off a little bit and pursuing the art of screen printing just for my own artistic. I needed to change it up. And so that started out in my garage. And then slowly within a year from that, we built it up to where I was ready to take over our old tattoo shop location.
Okay.
And so they're very close to each other. They're within not even a half mile. And there I went from 2 guys to 7 people over the past since COVID,
At the screen printing.
the screen printing. So
Okay.
the management element for me now is at the height
Yeah.
where it's like, that's like 14 or 15 people I've got, which is awesome. It's an amazing thing. And it feels great to be leading the crew, but it's forcing me to have to learn and research and how to become a better leader and a better
Yeah.
manager and
Right.
to be a better listener and to try to understand what everyone needs. Because the idea is, I guess, is you got to keep everybody happy if you want to keep the thing rolling.
Right.
So that it's been challenging, but I've actually enjoyed it and never thought I would be in that position. But I think most business owners, as they grow, that you have no choice. It's like if you want to keep getting bigger, you have to be trusting people and delegating things. And so that's kind of where I'm at now, where I'm just trying to build it up and train and get everybody to where they're doing the best at what they can do.
Yeah. And so you have the tattoo business, you have the screen printing business, and now you also have a clothing brand, right? A
Yes.
clothing
So
company.
the reason I started the printing business is because I wanted to start doing my artwork on shirts and selling them online.
Okay.
But I realized that the only way I could make that business survive with the overhead was to start printing for other businesses. So I tattoo so many of their
Uh,
local business owners that we'd be sitting there working and I'd say, "Hey, who does your shirts?" And they'd go, "Oh, the guy up the road." And I would say, well, hey, if you can give us a shot, I'll give you a deal. We just started a print shop. And at that time, I didn't have the capabilities to do as much elaborate things as the competitors. But because they were friends and they had rapport with us, they'd say, yeah, we'll give you a shot. So it started out really on like a very local. I mean, I would get the jobs from my clients at the tattoo shop and then print them in my garage
Yeah.
and then bring it to them. So it was kind of an underground business at first, and it started getting big to where my wife was tired of me coming home and printing shirts and having a couple beers after work. And she's like, you need to start a business here.
Yeah.
This is getting out of hand. So we started the print shop, and with me and a close friend who's actually the piercer that got me into tattooing, and he helped me build it up.
Crazy.
And so, yeah, it was just kind of everything kind of was just a slow and steady progression of just chipping away every day. And, with small business owners, I think the main key is that you just have to show up every day. You can't expect other people to take on. You can't pawn things off and expect it to go the way that you want. You have to put in that at least the first 5 to 10 years. You got to be in it every day and lead by example. And then eventually everyone knows how it's supposed to be done or how you want it to be done. And it kind of starts to happen more naturally. So I just recently have been able to beef up the staff enough to where I can trust that when I'm not there, that they're all doing the right thing and they all know their jobs. But before it was like, I'd have to start my day at the print shop, go do my tattoo, come back, watch, it was just a lot of juggling and trying to be at 2 places at once.
And that's hard, right?
It was stressful, but so anyways, it branched off into the Legendary LTD is the clothing brand.
Okay.
And so we're essentially, it's an online store and it's selling tattoo inspired clothing. So we've got a lot of cool, like American traditional, patriotic stuff. Florida, we're doing a lot of Florida style apparel.
Yeah.
We do seasonal stuff for Halloween. We're trying to just kind of keep it moving. And my wife actually just joined our team where she's helping me run that brand from behind the scenes. She's doing all the marketing and helping me develop the website better. So it's nice. We're finally at a point where I think that, now it's just a matter of organizing events and getting out there and doing some of these local events and, just getting it known, really. That's where we're at now. It's just getting exposure and trying to build the brand.
Yeah. I like that. I want to dive back into like what you said about, putting in the work like beforehand so that like when you're ready to scale or when you're ready to grow, it's almost like you prove that this process works or whatever your style or technique is works. And now I'm going to train you on to do that, right? I'm going to train this new person how to do that. If you didn't have that, then, they come into the business and we're like, well, he doesn't have a proven track record, right? So then they don't have a lot of belief in kind of what you're trying to teach them and that sort of stuff. So I think that's huge. And just the mindset of just showing up every single day. Like you have to show up if it's your business. Like you have to do it.
No one else is going to love it like you and treat it the way that you would treat it. It's your baby essentially. So you have to nurture it,
So what's the plan for the 3 businesses? Are they, like, what's your big vision for that?
Well, we're working towards building it out to where the main goal is to eventually get into one big facility. It's either going to be the big facility where everything's under one roof.
Cool.
But then I've been discussing ideas with my artists about potentially branching out into not franchise, but other locations because this area is developing so much that there's a lot of open area where we've built the name and I have the artists to where we could potentially start having multiple shops in the area as well. And maybe a mixture of the two. But I do want to get the print shop and the tattoo shop under one roof so that we can have the LTD brand in there, a nice big showroom, and just kind of fuse the two together. Eventually maybe even have a little restaurant or a coffee shop within it to where it could be kind of like a tourist destination for people to come and, buy some souvenirs and get a tattoo, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's really just fusing it all together. And eventually I do want to get into the YouTube side where I want to start teaching and passing on the knowledge that I've acquired as a tattooer. And I realize at this point, that's really something I can give back to the tattoo world, being that it's done so much for me in my life. I'd like to be able to help inspire artists that want to get into it because tattooing is an intimidating business to get into. And there's a lot of people that don't want to bring people in because they feel that the industry is already saturated.
Oh, wow.
So there's a lot of naysayers getting into the business. So, I want to be able to help guide people and, pass on some of the knowledge that I've acquired, you know?
Yeah, I love that. So what is, if there's someone out there that's listening that's looking to become a tattooer, like what is some advice that you would give them?
Well, the main thing that I think every shop owner has like a checklist in mind, that when you come into a shop looking for an apprenticeship, have a portfolio. Even nowadays, everyone has Instagram where they just say, "Oh, just check out my Instagram," and it's like, well, all of the physical imagery and pictures has become a thing of the past. But for an artist, it's nice to see hand drawn stuff and go through their portfolio, see their progression. And
Okay.
even if it's amateur artwork, it still shows that these people are driven enough to want to learn, and that they're showing you their art, and they are showing the initiative to learn,
Yeah.
which is what any owner is going to look at and go, okay, well, I see potential in this person. I literally just brought in a girl who graduated from a local tattoo school, which is a new thing as
Oh,
well,
wow.
where that now they have schools that you can get kind of an entry level certification where you go through. They at least come in knowing the sterilization processes. They've gotten to work on fake skin. They've gotten to do a few tattoos on their friends. So they're kind of halfway there through the apprenticeship process, but they're still not at the point where you can say, okay, here's your space. You can start tattooing. And because I have to, anything that comes back is on my name,
Yeah,
and
it's
I
your
have
brand,
to fix
right?
it and all
Yeah.
that. So the idea is to get people that are kind of halfway there, and then I'm trying to groom them into becoming a better artist, to where once they're trusted, then I can start letting them work on clients. But I think an apprentice just has to be patient. They should be willing to work another job while they apprentice, because you're not making much money as an apprentice.
Okay.
There are certain old school mentalities that most owners are going to have, that it's like, hey, we had to earn it the hard way.
Yeah.
So why should you just come in and all of a sudden get the job without having to follow that path that we followed? So
That's part of like what makes the artist, good at what they do too, right? Is kind of going through that process, that
yes.
journey.
And it builds the character. I mean,
Yeah.
you have to I think that tattooing is such a permanent procedure that you kind of have to take your time getting into it.
Yeah,
You can't
right.
just jump in and expect to be doing amazing work without really going through the trials and tribulations of having to fix stuff and having people come back saying, hey, this needs to be touched up. And,
Oh, yeah.
there's that accountability you have to build with your clients as well, and prove to them that, hey, I'm worthy. And the photographs of your tattoos essentially is what's going to drive the business. But then there's the personality side too, that
Yeah.
you kind of have to have a little bit of both, because there's some talented artists that don't have the good personality, and it damages their brand, because who wants to sit with someone for 4 hours
Right.
and if the guy's a jerk, you
Yeah,
know?
right.
So it's definitely a blend. And I think that's why tattooers are such a different breed, because most tattooers are pretty outgoing. They have good people skills. It's kind of like the hair industry, where they have to talk a lot to their
Sure.
clients. And there's a lot of, people share a lot of personal things with us. So in a way, we are almost like therapists to people
Yeah.
too, because a lot of times they're coming in because of a lost loved one or a lost pet,
Yeah.
and they want to memorialize them. So it's an emotional job in that sense too, where we are always having to kind of help people get through that. And
Yeah.
it wears on us. And that's why I think it's
Right.
a mentally stressful job for us as well.
Right. So how many tattoos can you do in a day? Well, it's probably limited, right?
Well, when I started, it'd be 3 to 5 a day, depending on size. But
Yeah.
now I take on most of the larger scale pieces.
Oh, okay.
So I'd say three of my artists we're all doing larger pieces, where we'll focus on 4 to 5 hours. So it's pretty much the whole
Crazy.
day. And then you have to come in and prep it ahead of time. So an 8-hour day is usually, you're putting everything into that one big piece.
Mm-hmm.
And then people will come in, and when you're done, and be like, well, I don't see you guys doing anything. And it's like, we're done. We just did a huge tattoo that just
Yeah.
left. So, we've gotten more into the custom realm versus the street shop realm, where you could just walk in and say, hey,
Okay.
this is what I want.
Yeah.
Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. And I'm trying to train enough people to where we can accommodate that part of the industry, because there is a lot of days where people will come in, and I have to unfortunately say, I'm sorry, we can't get to you for a few weeks.
Yeah.
And people get impatient, and they'll go up the road and start shopping,
Right.
But it's also one of those things that you get what you pay for. And, I would think that most people would prefer that someone's booked out and that they'd
Right.
wait versus just getting something by the guy who's sitting around twiddling his
Last
thumbs.
minute, and be like, yeah, I want to get this tattoo. Maybe sit
So
on it.
but it is one of those industries that you get a lot of the impatient side of it. So
Yeah.
our shop is more catered towards appointment only, and kind of being able to guide them through it to where both parties are comfortable with what the outcome will be,
Yeah. So I want to ask one last question before we wrap this up. So you've been in the area for a long time. You went to high school and obviously in middle school and stuff here in Palm Harbor. So you know the area well. If you had to pick one spot, like if you're going to go do something for you, you know, it's like Mitch's day. He's going to go out and hang out, do whatever he wants to do. Where are you going?
Well, I like to sneak off to Divine Brewery every once in a while. I'm friends with the owner there, Ben, and my buddy.
Speaking of that, Ben, we got to get Ben on the podcast.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah. He's going to be the one that I was going to send to you. Because I'm also friends with Gino from Palm Harbor Sign and Design. He's right across the street there.
Okay.
So I'll go pick up stuff for the shop, like business cards and stickers and stuff. And then we'll usually go over there and have a beer at the end of the day and everything. So that's kind of like my little watering hole, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But, you know, years ago it was Peggy's. We loved going to Peggy's, and we'd get the whole shop over there and eat. We like Thirsty Marlin. The Salty Lime Cantina is good. So even Bogota, we've been hanging out there.
Yeah.
So, you know, we've got a bunch of little lunch spots that we'll try to hit. And I just recently got into golf. So I've been, it's more of the border of Palm Harbor, but I've been taking lessons over at the Sterling Park, which used to be St. Andrews Links, and that got taken over by Dunedin. So I've been trying
they made some improvements there. It's
a nice well, and then you got the Dunedin course, which is nice too. Right. But I've been getting back into that. So I usually try to sneak off in the morning sometimes before work, and I'll hit some golf balls just to kind of clear my head. And
I like that. Yeah.
It's a nice way to start the day, practicing that. So
I like that. So you golf in the morning, tattoo in the afternoon, and then grab a beer at Divine in the evening.
Not every day, though. It's like once every couple of weeks, you know. I don't want to sound like
but that's a good day. Like that.
It's definitely a nice thing to pamper yourself. Like the ladies are going to get their hair done, and I'm going to hit golf balls. It's just something to release some stress, you know.
Yeah, right. You got to have that. That. Well, awesome, Mitch. I appreciate you being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I think this is awesome what you're doing for the community, and definitely try to push you guys online and you know, get you some other business owners that we're friends with.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And we'll link all of your website, social media, that sort of stuff in the description below for anybody that's interested. Awesome. And then head on over to Legendary Tattoos.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you again for listening to another episode of Palm Harbor Local. I really hope you got a ton of value out of today's episode. Now, if you're looking to connect with the guest or just get more information on the episode, then you can check the description below. I'll have all the links in the episode as well as a link back to my website. It's palmharborlocal.com, where you can stay up to date on what's going on with the podcast and sign up there to join the locals. Let's get after it this week. And remember, together, we keep Palm Harbor local.